The base is dropped on a toasty Thursday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. May 30th, SDH is live on an Overreaction Thursday, a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. There's going to be lots of stuff happening this morning. Atlanta United 3-0 winners over Minnesota last night. We'll be getting into all of your reactions, over, under, on par about that. We'll get into all of the action around MLS last night. Lots of games in the third round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup last night, and this morning we will learn who Atlanta United and the rest of the MLS teams will be facing in round 4 of the tournament. And it is not confirmed as of yet, but it looks legit. Joe Tanzi, who writes for Pro Soccer USA, has tweeted out the 8 regional pools for the 4th round draw that'll take place this morning at 11 o'clock. Atlanta United is in a pool with Charleston, Memphis, and Orlando City. So you could face any of those 3 if these pools are accurate. And that was one of the possibilities I was expecting. North Carolina FC was another one that maybe could have ended up with Atlanta, but it looks like they are in the Northeast pool with New England and both of the New York MLS teams. So stay tuned. We'll try to get some confirmation that that is accurate. But if that's the case, it could be Atlanta and Charleston again. It could be Atlanta and Memphis for the first time, or it could be Atlanta and Orlando City in their first Open Cup encounter. We'll catch you up on all that as we go. But let's start with some highlights from last night. The broadcast on Fox Sports South with Kevin Egan and Dan Gargan and Jillian Sakovitz. Here are their highlights from Atlanta's 3-0 win over the Loons.
Parkhurst for Gressel. Martinez drops deep again. The slip pass is a good one. All the way through for Escobar! Sensational finish. Nice touch inside. Angelo Rodriguez, a strong body. Good chance for Minnesota. Big time save from Guzan. It's still there. Another big save. The ball is kept out of play. And Guzan collects.
First slipped in, Boxel still there, big save, makes himself, gets another touch here, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and goes out and gets it. This is incredible stuff from Bragazan. That ball does not cross the line. Another touch on it.
Gressel lays it back for Escobar. Oh, it's a lovely ball forward. Julian Gressel is emptying the tank as he races away. Perfect pass for Joseph Martinez. Goes again. Joseph Martinez in on goal. Second in the game. 3 points at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the MVP wraps it up.
Fantastic work all around. Left, right, chop, chop. Gets a fortuitous bounce. But makes no mistake, it buries that past Manoni.
Oh, here's a chance. Played back by Alcopara. Joseph Martinez onside. 1-on-1 with Manoni. 3-0 Atlanta United.
From Atlanta, a clearance from LGP and a mental error from Michael Parra. Joseph Martinez hanging back. Buries that to put this game completely out of reach.
We'll give you a glimpse of what it sounded like on 92.9 The Game here in a bit. But, John, what'd you think about Atlanta's performance last night?
We were getting into it yesterday on the show. I really liked what I saw out of Dion Pereira. I think that when your coach lights a fire under you collectively as a group, you want to see who responds. And it was another good night for Dion Pereira, and especially on the defensive end. The one play that I know that stuck out in your mind was where he kind of channeled insert defensive back here or a Thomas Davis type play. I liked the idea of PT and Escobar together, which was another thing that we had discussed. And that gave PT the opportunity to work inside, cut inside, and go with the left. It had its moments of diciness. The Guzan moment obviously is one that sticks out. And there was the one angle kind of from the 30s that gave the impression. But once again, if you don't see it and you don't have a whole lot to overturn it, then you're not going to do anything about it. And then you have Julian Gressel, who came up big, especially in the second goal. And then the defensive howler, which reminded me of Freddie Brown and James Worthy of Georgetown and North Carolina to get goal 3 on the board. But I think that Atlanta United, needs a night like this on a bunch of different levels to sit there and say, hey, we can score multiple goals in a match. We can do things different ways. And we can really dig deep when we have to. So I thought it was a well-rounded performance, and especially when you had to dig deep late, you found a way to dig deep and get 2 on the board after the clock turned 90 for 3-0.
Look, I don't think it was a 3-0 dominating kind of performance. It was a good performance. I thought it was a good 55 minutes, and then Atlanta started to hit a wall a little bit. Minnesota grew into it. I'm surprised Adrian Heath didn't go for the game earlier than he did. He just swapped his forwards because Dunlady was not effective and Quintero was slightly more effective, but not that effective. And it took his third sub to bring in Ethan Finley to really change the way that the Loons were playing. I thought they should have tried that earlier because it felt like Atlanta was on the ropes a little bit. Look, I don't think there's any team in the league right now that can dominate for 90 minutes because of the compression and the amount of games you're playing. I think you have to limit, the way you manage a game. And you do have to basically control damage at points and just ride things out. And I felt like Atlanta did a pretty good job of that. When they needed some reinforcements, they bring on Florentine Pogba. They go to 5 in the back. I thought the description in the Wednesday recap from Matt Doyle at MLSsoccer.com was completely inaccurate. It was not at the 60th minute that Atlanta all of a sudden decided to bunker. Atlanta ran out of gas, and they were holding on, and they needed to bring on a third center back much later than the 60th minute because Minnesota had by that point went to playing essentially a 4-2-4 because you had Finley and Ibarra up very high on the wings with Gregush and Alonso as your 2 central midfielders and your 2 forwards, who at that point were Rodriguez and Toy. So you're not going to play 4 in the back against a line of 4 up top. That's bad tactics. So you bring on another player. But again, it didn't feel like Atlanta was bunkering in any way in that. And you're not bunkering to try to look to counter. You played out of trouble because you are a team that wants to build out of the back, and Escobar chipping the ball down the line to Gressel, and then Gressel giving Joseph Martinez a chance to go 1v1. It turned into 1v2, and you're going to give Joseph that chance to put the game away, and he does. Third goal is just a fluky thing. It happens. Ikapara lost where he was on the field, lost what he had around him, and just made a bad play. It didn't affect the ultimate result at the end of the day.
No.
But this was a good, I think, controlled performance from Atlanta United, and they were controlling of the match when they had that ability to do so, and then when they really kind of lost that ability, they didn't get hurt. That's where you're at this point of the season. And you look at some of the other results around the league where teams got out to leads and could not hold them. It's where you have to give Atlanta a lot of credit for managing the match the way they did last night.
Yeah, and that's the sentence that I would use. You give them credit for the way they manage. I didn't think that it was a bunkering situation when you brought in Florentine Pogba. I thought that because of
what was said. What was said in the recap was that they started bunkering at the 60th minute, and that's not what happened. Minnesota, give Minnesota credit. Minnesota started to take more and more control of the game in the second half. It felt like the first 10 minutes of the second half, Atlanta was still good, still first half level, and had chances to put the game away there. They couldn't. Minnesota grew into the game. And the sub for Pogba, look, bringing on a third center back doesn't mean you're bunkering.
No.
Like that's not what that means. It's not what happened. And it's disappointing that the way that was written, because that's not the way the game played out. And if you did, it doesn't matter. But describe it to me. I hope that these types of things happen where people get the terminology and get the tactics of it, because that was not Atlanta bunkering in the second half. That was Atlanta running out of gas, and it was Minnesota playing well. And Atlanta made the change that they needed to make based off the changes Minnesota made, and they saw the game out. That's how it goes. Bunkering, I think, takes on a negative connotation at times, which is not necessarily fair. But when that's not what happened, that's not what happened. And to me, there was nothing about Atlanta bunkering here and then just throwing up a long ball, letting Joseph go try to get it. That is the most simplistic way of looking at the way the game played out last night.
You could sense that momentum was shifting and that Minnesota was on the front foot. They were pushing. They were trying to get that, that result that would put them, at 1-1. I didn't think that what Atlanta did in their substitution pattern lent itself to sitting there and saying, okay, we're going to bunker. That was not what I was looking at. To me, it was something to respond to all of the numbers that Minnesota was bringing forward. And, we've discussed this for years, that if they're sending 4, you want to have more than that. And so that was literally how I was looking at it. If you're sending all these guys forward, you want to have at least one more back there than the number that they have forward up top. So for me, 5 has always meant more than 4.
Yeah, but that's not even what Doyle wrote. That's what I'm trying to make it clear. Doyle said, and let me just go ahead and pull that up so we can talk about this and make this clear the way that we feel like the second half went. And we do have some news out of Cincinnati. They are hiring their new general manager this morning. We'll talk about that as well. But, okay. So, it is still jarring at times, this is from Matt Doyle, to see Atlanta United play like this. Okay. For 60 minutes, they'd clearly been the better team than visiting Minnesota United and held a 1-0 lead and were at home with a pretty loud and involved crowd. It felt in a lot of ways like the good times were returning. But on the hour mark, like clockwork, Atlanta retreated more and more into a shell. It's just incorrect. By the 70th minute, they were outright bunkering at home against a team that has never made the playoffs and that hasn't scored more than a single goal in a month and a half. Absolutely incorrect. That's not what happened. And that's nothing to do with the substitution, so separate the things. Minnesota, 64th minute, brought on Mason Toye for Abu Dunladi. Dunladi was borderline useless in this match and committed 6 fouls and was on an orange card after possibly stomping on Leandro Gonzalez-Perez on the touchline. You had to make that sub. Toye didn't really give you a whole lot either, but he wasn't on 6 fouls already. Angelo Rodriguez for Darwin Quintero. That means you're going to go even more direct. You got 2 pretty big bodies up top. 81st minute is when Pogba came on and Ethan Finley came on at the 82nd minute, so right around the same time. You see what Minnesota's going to do, and I remember how all of that went down. You could see that Ethan Finley was up and he was going to be the substitution. At that point, if you are Atlanta's bench, what's happening. So you're bringing in Pogba. You're going 2-5 in the back against their front 4 with Finley and Ibarra pushed up very high on the wings. That's how it played out. Again, not bunkering, and you didn't start bunkering in the 60th minute, the 70th minute. Look, you're trying to get, when you write these types of things, you're trying to get a reaction. And then the whole point from Doyle was this is why you bunker, and it's the second goal. I disagree with the way that this was written because, one, Minnesota's a better team than what they've done into the 2 previous years. So that has zero to do with how Minnesota is right now. Minnesota's a playoff team, flat out. They're not scoring a lot of goals from the run of play at the moment, and that's something that Darwin Quintero's got to solve. That's something they got to figure out with Dunladi or Angelo Rodriguez. But they're a playoff team. So what they did 2 years ago has no impact on the way you manage this game. That's foolishness. Atlanta United was on the ropes in the second half because Minnesota was creating more and more and more. And Atlanta got the job done. They were still looking for chances to break possessions 50-50 or so. That's not the hallmark of a bunkering game. So, I don't know. It's little things like that you're definitely trying to get a reaction when you use the term bunkering. Minnesota had their best moment around the 74th minute when they had the flurry of shots that Brad Kazan kept out. That's about it. So after Atlanta was reportedly bunkering, they had 6 shots. I don't know. Good night all the way around for Atlanta United. I don't think there's anybody who really played poorly. Nobody stood out to me in that regard. There were some very good performances. Joseph with 2 goals, even though they're in stoppage time. He was good on the night. I thought he was very good playing a complete forward role. Franco Escobar was outstanding. It shows he's one of the best right backs in this league. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez was our man of the match. Just warrior, battling, finally figure out how to keep the head wound closed. The black tape.
And go to the darker tape.
Yeah, that probably helped a little bit. And Brad Kazan was excellent. He was your Golden Spike winner in the building. Joseph was your man of the match in the building. Our man of the match on radio was LGP. Franco Escobar should be in that conversation. Dion Pereira should be in that conversation. It was a good night all the way around for Atlanta United. Let's hear what Frank de Boer had to say after the match.
Frank, it looked like a very tactical match for most of the night, but Franco was very effective when he got forward. Could you talk about his performance and how happy you were with the team overall? But more so.
No, yeah, Franco, I think he had a great performance, a great game. Against a team who wants to drop deep, and you have to have wing backs or full backs who has to support, and he is the modern type of full backs, who can go up and down for 90 minutes. He showed it today, and then also still get his quality in, so it was fantastic. PT came in and he just slipped it, or maybe even didn't touch it. But Franco was there to support in the box and made a fantastic goal. And this is what we want from our fullbacks. And sometimes they have to support in the midfield, like Parky. Of course, he's maybe a little bit more suitable for coming in the midfield, and then more Dion, more outside. So, this is how we want to play. Every time recognize the moments where we have to stand, and every time the shape has to be well. And today, I think the first hour we had a period like 50 minutes that we had really the control. They were, we call it a lock-on. Every time we could pass them around, have shots, get the ball back. And again, first our midfielders, then our wingers coming in the box. So... that was very pleasing to see.
Escobar is a game changer for Atlanta United. And I think now people are starting to understand why Frank de Boer talked about how important he was to the way he wanted Atlanta United to play, and why he had to do some things differently early in the season when Escobar was injured. I think he's that important and he's that critical. And I liked how he define the differences between Escobar and Parkhurst when he is an outside back, a fullback. Because Parkhurst, a lot of times you saw tuck in centrally to the midfield to help Remedi and Nagbe, whereas with Franco, you want him bombing forward. And when you look at the team's average position, I mean, it shows that, and the way the team was lined up shows that. Parkhurst is not going to be up overlapping Dion Pereira very much. You want Pereira to have those 1v1 opportunities and have the green light to go. On the other side, Pity Martinez is going to cut inside a lot, and that's going to leave the wing for Franco Escobar to go. So very smart tactics in that regard, and you got the most out of the players you had in the formation last night. I thought the instructions were very good. I thought the players followed them, and when you look at the way Atlanta played in this one, I thought they were pretty fluid, again, up until about the 55th, 60th minute, where they did start to hit that wall, and you are kind of holding on to finish the game off and get the result that you need. And you get 2 in stoppage time, and it looks like a whole different match than it was. We've got some more post-match audio to come after the break. You're going to get to hear from Brad Kazan. You'll hear our calls on 92.9 The Game right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, live on Thursday, May 30th. It's an Overreaction Thursday edition of the show. Let's hear how the overreactions were flowing out of the 92.9 game booth last night on our radio call of Atlanta's 3-0 win over Minnesota.
Parkhurst on the left wing. Nice ball in the middle to find Julian Gressel, 25 yards from goal. Down the middle it goes to Pitti. Stabbed away, but it goes to Escobar, who scores! And how do you like that from the Joker on the finishing end of a beautiful team goal by Atlanta United to give them the 1-0 lead. And now it is Escobar trying to create a steal. Instead, it's sent through Rodriguez, through traffic. A shot, a kick saved by Guzan. Sent back into the sixth. The whistle does not blow. It's headed wide and cleared off the line by Guzan, who sprints up to the ball and dives on it. How is there no foul on any of it? I don't know. Now Guzan sends it down the right wing. Guzan is furious as he dumps it into the Minnesota end and out. Julian dribbles over to the far touchline, left back to Miles, who pops it down the touchline. Can Julian get on it? Yes. Volleys it to himself. Comes down the center of the park. Beautiful ball ahead to Joseph. 1-on-1 with Opara. Joseph dribbling into the top of the arc. Pops it to himself. Shot! Score! Golazo! And the Loons have been plucked in stoppage time. They'll play it down the middle, where it bounces again to the top of the arc, and LGP with a diving clear. And then it's Opara heading it to Joseph, and he's onside because Opara touched it. Breakaway Joseph, shot, score! Well, that's one way to get a brace.
Yeah, not the way you normally get a brace. Ike Opara just lost his head. And you feel bad for him because Opara was good last night. He's been a big part of Minnesota's much better play in 2019, but just lost, I think, his surroundings and lost what was around him. You could see how angry he was at himself afterwards. Joseph, stays offside all the time. Well, it paid off this time. So I hope people are happy now. Let's hear from Brad Guzan after the match in the post-match media availability.
Tough end of the road trip. What does this one mean for you guys?
Yeah, we talked about at the beginning of the game that it didn't matter how. After 90 minutes, we needed to get 3 points. It was never a 3-0 game, but that's probably just the icing on the cake to score an extra 2 goals. When you're only winning the game 1-0, then you have a few chances. Goalkeeper makes a few saves for them. Of course, you're going to be a little bit on edge. probably down to us not managing the game as well as we should have. But ultimately, 3 points, that's all that matters.
Can you go through that sequence of saves in the second half, please?
I've seen it back once. I think kind of crosses it in towards the near post. Guy gets a touch, or we get a touch, falls to him. I'm able to make a block after it comes off my knee. I'm almost positive it hits his hand, which is why I think we were all kind of going a little crazy. And then from there, it was just a ping pong ball in and around the 6-yard box, just trying to keep it out of the goal. So, fortunately, we were able to do that.
Yeah, not sure if there was a handball there on Minnesota. I couldn't tell from the replays we saw.
I don't
think it crossed the line. I never thought it did. The replays that we got, it looked like the ball was even with the post, which would mean it was on the line. And remember the difference in the way that the lines are dealt with in soccer compared to some other sports. The whole ball has to cross the line. It's not breaking the plane or touching the line or anything like that. The whole ball has to be over the line. And from the angles that I saw, I did not think that happened.
There was, like I said, there was the one angle that was kind of low. That was the low slash that was the closest to giving the impression that the whole ball may have gone over the line. But once again, that was one angle of 4, and all I can say is, to me, it looked close. It didn't look like the whole ball went over, but once again, you're staring at something at a 45-degree angle, and perceptions are a little different. Jeff Guggenheim on the Twitters this morning says his overreaction Thursday is from Minnesota United fans clamoring for VAR. How was the handball missed seconds prior to the Gazan save/mess? That whole sequence should have been for naught due to the handball.
Yeah, I didn't get a good look. I was so focused on did the ball go over the line, I couldn't tell if there was a handball from Minnesota. I do believe there were some shouts as well for a handball from LGP and all of that as well. It was absolute chaos. They did look at it. I mean, they looked at it for a pretty good bit of time. So they used all of the available angles that they had and didn't see anything to get involved. And with it being a goal-scoring play, you know, they could have called a handball and a penalty for Minnesota. They could have called a handball and a free kick for Atlanta. They could have called nothing, and they ultimately called nothing because they couldn't find anything to call. We'll get into more Overreaction Thursday messages from you guys on Twitter, and go ahead and chime in at Soccer Down here on Twitter. But we do have some news this morning out of Cincinnati. There's a press conference coming up in a couple of hours, but Dutch football executive Gerard Nijkamp has joined FC Cincinnati as their new general manager, and he will oversee all aspects of the club's sporting activities. He is coming over from Eredivisie club PEC Zwolle, where he served as the club's technical director since 2012. Zwolle is a smaller club in the Netherlands, but a club that has a lot of similar philosophies to the big clubs about having a philosophy, implementing it throughout the club, developing young talent, bringing in players from outside the club that fit the system, developing kids from your academy to play in the system. All of that will be very, very helpful, I think, for Cincinnati, because they don't really have that at the moment. They didn't really develop that, I think, in the way that maybe they had hoped that they would have by now. Now, according to FC Cincinnati, Nijkamp will report to club president Jeff Birding. He'll manage the first-team head coach, and he'll probably be heavily involved in deciding who that will be in the long term. Technical director Luke Sassano will report to Nijkamp, and sports performance, player development, academy, all that type of stuff will report to Nijkamp in the long run. So he will be introduced to the media, I believe, at 11 a.m., if I'm correct on that.
Yep.
Before his time with Zwolle, as his career was winding down, he started working with Dutch player development, the KNVB Academy U12 group in 1994. He started with Zwolle as an academy director, was a U19 head coach. So he has that coaching experience, and on the youth side, he's also been part of the Dutch youth national team coaching staff. Went to Qatar, where he was an academy director for a couple of different clubs, and then he's been involved in coaching education with the Dutch Federation. So really strong background in terms of creating and implementing a philosophy. And I think that will help Cincinnati in the long run. How long it'll take, we'll have to wait and see. And these things don't happen overnight. But this is the right move, and this is the type of move maybe should have happened sooner than now.
Yeah, and you look at the success that he had at PEC. Best Eredivisie finish was 6th, a Europa League berth, Dutch Cup semis in 12-13, winning it outright 13-14. And in the release, it specifically states that Zwolle, long known for its youth development, they finished 13th in the Eredivisie this past season, but getting a philosophy, starting it, with youth. And last week, they hired Larry Sunderland, director of player development, to oversee the launch of the academy. So you're seeing those early age implementations and those stages and steps of bringing in individuals to look at something from an academy perspective to continue to build this idea that you now have with Sunderland and Nijkamp in there. But how long it's going to take to build stuff, don't know. But this looks like on its face to be a good couple of steps in bringing in Sunderland and now bringing in Nijkamp. And at 11 o'clock in Cincinnati, we get to find out what Nijkamp is looking for when it comes to a head coach, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about that when it comes to what kind of individual he wants on the touchline to take over for Yoann Damet.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, too, when we talk about what Zwolle did is Nijkamp was overseeing everything. He wasn't managing matches that would result in the placement. So it's one of those things where, in that role, it's a little hard to put individual results on him. So they finished 6th or they finished 15th or wherever they finished. That's not necessarily it, but the fact that he's developed young talent, he's created a philosophy that goes through the club, those are the things that Cincinnati is looking for him to do, and that's what he'll ultimately be judged on, because the person in that role can do everything correct, and the manager can make individual mistakes that cost you points and cost you placement and cost you matches. They're not all the time 100% directly related. So keep that in mind when you look at it and you're like, oh, well, he's coming from not that big of a club, or they didn't have a good season, so he can't really be that good. I think his background is exactly what Cincinnati needs. I think he's the right kind of fit here, and he's going to give them an identity. And it's something, we talk about a lot. We hammer this home all the time. Clubs in this league and clubs across the United States need identity going forward. And Nijkamp seems to be the right kind of person to implement an identity for FC Cincinnati from the U12s all the way up through the first team. And that will serve them very well. And you implement it, you develop it, you implement it, and then you have to get the results out of it. And that's the final step, and that's going to be ultimately down on who Nijkamp and Birding decide on as the manager. And remember, Philippe Cocu, Dutch international, Dutch legend, was the person that was linked to the club earlier in the week, and we'll have to see if those rumors continue to grow or if maybe something's already been decided.
And you look at the success of what you can do when you build an academy, and we're seeing it with Atlanta United. All you have to do is look at what happened with the Manchester City Cup out on the West Coast, and to see that kind of result. And that group that was out there was a part of the U12s that were part of everything from the absolute beginning. And now you're seeing what that group is capable of when they're put in these cup situations. So obviously, Atlanta United saw that, implemented it, and you're seeing what's going on. And Cincinnati, by bringing in Nijkamp and Sunderland, is looking to formulate and have that identity that they're looking for going forward. So, I think it's a good step in bringing in Nijkamp, and now I just want to see what they're looking at. Is it going to be Cocu, or is it going to be someone else? And then what's the philosophy going to be going forward when you have this nucleus in place?
winning cups doesn't define identity. And that's a key delineation here. Atlanta United's academy, the way that they played, is more important in defining that identity than lifting the trophy at the end at a U14 level. And even last year, we talked about it a lot. You know, the identity that Tata Martino had created, he went completely away from that in the postseason. And it worked, and you did get the result, and you lifted the trophy at the end, which is your ultimate goal. But did it serve the identity? Not in the postseason, it didn't. That's a big difference here, but in general, you will have more success if you have a defined identity. It's not always the case, and you do see clubs and managers that are able to thrive and succeed without much of an identity. And one that we've talked about, and I'm sure we'll talk about a lot more on Soccer Over There as we go, is Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti has thrived as a manager coming in and being adaptable and coming in and replacing a Jose Mourinho or a Pep Guardiola and finding success in both situations because he's able to adapt to where the club is and get the most out of what he has. He doesn't really have a defined identity. Obviously, Guardiola does. Obviously, Mourinho does. Jurgen Klopp. As the way that their teams play, they have the identity. And then you get to the club identity, which is a step beyond. That's why Manchester City brought Pep Guardiola in, because they didn't have an identity. It was, let's go get great players. Cool. Okay. Now what? There wasn't a now what until they got Pep. And that's what they're trying to develop. So I think that's why NYC brought in Dome Tarrant, because you're trying to get some of that Pep identity in NYC, infuse it into the academy and the way your first team plays, and give you a better base for success. So we'll see if Gerard Nijkamp can do that for FC Cincinnati, but it sounds like they're thinking very big picture here, and it's something that he didn't really have in USL, and they didn't really bring into their initial foray into MLS. We'll see if now maybe they can have a little bit of course correction to get where they want to get. We're going to take a break. We'll get into some of your tweets and your overreactions, underreactions, on par reactions on a Thursday right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, SDH, May 30th, Overreaction Thursday. Let's waste no more time and get to the Twitter timeline. John, what do we have on the Twitters?
Okay, Ricky Ricardo is petitioning for a new nickname for the Joker.
Okay.
He is petitioning to Franco Escobar's new nickname to be Banco Escobar because it seems whenever he and the ball are on the backside of goal, he cashes in. And then he says, Tanko Escobar works too. # all he scores is bangers.
The recommendation has been heard, and I'm going to vote against it. Sorry. The Joker's just because of the tattoo, that's all, because it's an amazing tattoo.
And then Ricky says, is the save or saves Brad made the best he's done as a 5-stripe? This or MLS Cup has to do it for me. I'm also wondering what y'all's thoughts are on bringing on Pogba to see out the result last night.
MLS Cup was a great save. This one was really, really good, but it was just kind of chaotic. The save on Dom Dwyer last year in Orlando was the save of the season for me. And the save on Bradley Wright Phillips at Red Bull Arena late in the regular season in 2017 was the best one he's had in an Atlanta United shirt. Pogba coming on late. I mean, I think we've covered it. Like, to me, it was a direct reaction to Ethan Finley coming on and Minnesota going to what was going to turn into a 4-2-4. I think Frank de Boer saw that was how Minnesota had decided to try to get back into the game in the final 10 minutes. So you just get another body in at center back, and you have 5. It freed up Miles Robinson to be a little more as a free role there. Leandro and Pogba were more of your marking backs. And Pogba, I mean, I think the instructions were very simple for him. It's don't let the ball get in our final third, and if it does, play it as far away from our final third as possible. So he wasn't looking to combine. He wasn't looking to build out of the back too much. It was get rid of the thing. He did the job.
Cairo has a couple of thoughts. PT continues not to get protection or even fairness from refs because I assume they don't like the way he goes down. He also gives the ball away in dangerous areas when the team can be caught out. He can't control the first, so how does he overcome it?
The first is getting ridiculous because it was... Man, it was building. It felt like every no call was getting worse and worse. And the one where Osvaldo Alonso just stomped on his foot, dribbling across the top of the 18, should have been a really dangerous free kick for Pitti to take afterwards. And I have no idea how it wasn't called. There were multiple ones that I'm just shrugging my shoulders, no clue why he's not getting those calls. Maybe it is because of the way he goes down. I don't know, but it's not a good look when this is happening regularly. It's very frustrating if you're Pity Martinez. And I think you could see where there were 2 plays in a row where he didn't get a call. One, he was just grabbed. Another, he was knocked off his run. Neither one was called. And about late in the first half, I think, and that was when Leandro Gonzalez-Perez was running a little bit hot because Atlanta United as a group was frustrated that their star man, Pity Martinez, can't get a call from a referee. That's the stuff that, you have to get frustrated and you have to voice it because you have to have those conversations with the referee. It's part of managing the game. You can't let it affect other things, and that's what you want to get to. In terms of giving the ball away in bad situations, he had a couple last night that we hadn't seen as much of from him. When he gives the ball away in the attacking half, I don't care. I want him to feel free to try things and do things that others wouldn't have the vision to or the guts to. That's why you bring in a player like Pity Martinez. But you can't have the giveaways around midfield. And we've talked about this with Julian Gressel as well. There are certain spots on the field and there's times in your build-up that you can't afford a turnover because you could give the opposition a very good chance to counter. And Pity had a couple of those last night that were a little worrisome. It hasn't been a long-term issue for me. I think generally his giveaways have been in the attacking third, and that's okay. If you give it away there, you're fine, especially if you're set. So it's something to keep an eye on, but it's not something that has been a long-term issue for me when it comes to Pity.
Then Cairo's second thought, I've seen reports on NFL teams submitting clips of controversial calls to the league office for review after games to make a point. Does Atlanta United is a $15 million DP, or is $15 million DP star players getting kicked all around the field and not allowed to bring their flair what at MLS wants?
It shouldn't be what MLS wants. And if it is, then there's a bigger problem. I don't think it is, but we saw it last year with Barco. We've seen it previously with Miguel Almiron, who was a very different kind of player. When We're seeing it this year with Pity Martinez. It's very strange to me because you also see Zlatan Ibrahimovic grabbing players around the throat off the ball and not being red carded, but then later being suspended for 2 matches because of it. I don't know. I don't know if there is a bias in the way that Latin American players are called as opposed to European players. I don't know if there is a lack of familiarity with the way players play in Latin America, in South America, and Central America versus in Europe. I don't know if there is a decided movement to stamp out diving or simulation or embellishment, and they feel like Latin players are more prone to that. I don't know, but it's a frustrating thing when you see consistently anytime Pity Martinez creates some space or anytime Ezequiel Barco would create some space that they just get kicked and just whacked or grabbed or pushed and nothing happens. It's a frustrating thing. I don't know about the whole like sending clips in. The league office doesn't oversee the referees. That's one thing to keep in mind when it comes to Major League Soccer. You're talking about an independent organization, the Professional Referees Organization. It's something that I think they need to do a better job of because it's been consistent over 3 years now where that's a way you defend Atlanta United is you kick players all over the field. And you're going to watch them get frustrated, and, yeah, they then have problems in playing their best game. That shouldn't be a strong defensive tactic, is to kick players all over the field. It works, though.
Then Ricky has hashtag even more thirsty thoughts.
Okay.
Only two crosses for Atlanta United. What do you think the biggest differences were for having that number so low?
You didn't have to. That's a good number. You don't want to just pump in crosses. So you didn't have to in this one. It's not the way the game played out. So you were able to cut inside more. Dion Pereira was able to not just beat a defender and then lump in a cross, but was able to beat a defender and then cut inside and play a pass. That's what you want. I bristle a little bit at the way that Opta defines through balls and crosses. Those are the two that I think are the most inconsistent in our MLS stats because there were more than 2 crosses last night, in my opinion. I can think of a few different ones that you could call a cross, you could call a pass. I think in general, you didn't see Atlanta settle for just lumping in crosses and hoping. Everything was played more with a purpose, and that was because Pity Martinez was beating players on the dribble, Dion Pereira is beating players on the dribble. And when Atlanta on the wings are creating those 1v1s and are winning those 1v1s, they're not going to have to just lump in crosses and hope that Joseph can out-jump people. And that's a good thing.
Hudson at the Mile High 17 on the Twitters, whose avatar is a picture of him and someone that I anticipate is a very good dog. I think tonight really showed the importance of an early first goal. I also liked this with closer to 50-50 possession. I felt it and the goal made them push forward more and become exposed. We really could have had the 3-0 lead earlier. Hashtag thirsty thoughts. Hashtag Vamos ATL.
Okay, this is something that I do not understand. The early goal, yes, and not conceding early, absolutely 100%. I mean, you get the first goal more often than not, you're going to win. But being happy to have less of the ball makes no sense to me. It just doesn't. And I don't think it helped anything. I think it was the way the game played out. The first half, Atlanta had, I think, 54% of the possession, and Minnesota had 46%. Minnesota's not the Red Bulls in that you don't want the ball because you want to eliminate their press, because if you have the ball, they can press you. Minnesota's not that. Minnesota's there. They don't really have that identity. So you want the ball. You want to keep possession. If you have the ball, it's much harder for the opposition to score because they've got to get it at some point and somehow. So I disagree with this thing, and it's been, the flip side too, where everybody has complained if Atlanta has possession but doesn't win. It seems to be like this irate thing. When then in Barcelona it was the opposite when Tata Martino went there, and it's like, oh, you don't have 50% of the possession. I don't care if you won 4-0. That's not right. it's not a bad thing to have the ball, guys. Like, it's a good thing. You want the ball. You can do more in the match if you have the ball. And I think if you have a good team, you want the ball even more. If you are an inferior team and you're not good with the ball at your feet, okay, then you don't want it. I want Pity Martinez with the ball at his feet. I want Dion Pereira with the ball at his feet. I want Julian Gressel with the ball at his feet. I definitely want Darlington Agby with the ball at his feet. I want Leandro Gonzalez-Perez and Michael Parkhurst with the ball at their feet. They know what to do with it. So you want the ball. You want possession. Possession is not the end-all, be-all. Like, if you look at a game, you can't tell who won by looking at the possession numbers. It gives you color as to how the game was played, but it doesn't define success. But in general, to me, just from the way that you play the game, you're going to have more control over the outcome if you have the ball, in general. If you are the Red Bulls, then you are a team that wants to control the game by pressing and not having the ball. I think that's a very limited system. I do. I think even your top pressing managers out there, a guy like Jurgen Klopp, has created things in his system that are not just strictly, okay, we're going to punt it long, and we're going to go press, and we're going to go chase, and we're going to go harass, and that's all we're going to do. You have to have more than that to me. So, in general, I want the ball. I don't think there's anything to be gained from, okay, it was 50-50 here instead of 60-40, so that's a good thing for Atlanta. I disagree with that. I do not subscribe to the Jose Mourinho theory of, well, if you have the ball, then that means you can make more mistakes with it. That's a defeatist attitude. To me, I think if you have the ball, you can do more with it. And if you have the players that Atlanta United is investing in and the way that Atlanta wants to play, you want the ball and you want to give those guys every opportunity to impact the match. So, am I disappointed they had 50%? No, that's not the case. But is it a good thing they only had 50% compared to other games? No, it's not. I disagree with that. And I think we need to stop being afraid of having the ball. It's something that I don't understand where this is coming from. Because in a match, to me, you should cherish your time with the ball, and you should not be afraid of it. And I hope that changes at some point. I think the mentality will be better if it's celebrated that you have the ball, and I think for the long-term success of the American game, more clubs wanting more possession and developing players who are comfortable with the ball, in my opinion, creates better soccer players. So that's what I hope happens in the long run. I hope we can get past being worried about having a lot of possession or thinking that's a bad thing.
ATO UTD fan number one, on several occasions this year when other teams could have pulled away from Atlanta United, the soccer gods decided differently to keep Atlanta United connected to the top in the East. Chicago, DC, Philly, all with 1 point last night. Hashtag on par reaction. Hashtag Thursday thoughts.
Yeah, DC fought back to get that point with a goal late, or they fought back because that game was tops and turns. Chicago actually got the late goal to get the point, but DC had to fight back in the first place to get the lead. And then Philadelphia conceded to Colorado. The Connor Casey effect continues for the Rapids, and they get a nice goal from Jonathan Lewis. Hey, Atlanta's right there in the Eastern Conference. I know that's a shock to maybe some national writers, and that's a shock, I think, to some people in Atlanta. But they're right there. They're just fine. Right now, everybody's beating everybody up. Around the league, it's just a fact. Everybody is just beating everybody up with the way the schedule is. And I don't think there's anybody in the league who can dominate a game for 90 minutes right now. I don't think it's possible with the wear and tear that everybody's dealing with.
Thomas Gowin says, well, all that stress about missing players during Copa America, not a problem anymore. Makes me sad, honestly.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you're going to be missing Joseph Martinez, but Tito Villalba and the injury, you can't risk it if you're Paraguay. You don't know if he's going to be ready to go on game one. And Paraguay's not a team that can afford to carry somebody that maybe can help you in the tournament. You've got to make sure of it. So I hate it for Tito because I think he will have more opportunities with Paraguay, and I think this was a big one for him to play in a Copa America. But next year, I think he'll be back in the running for the Paraguayan national team. When it comes to Pitti, with Argentina, look, there's a ton of talent. It's never going to be easy to make that team because it's Argentina. They're one of the most talented countries in the world. So you have to be at the absolute, top of your game, and he hasn't been. So he's not going to get that call right now. I think he can get that call next time around for sure. And, we'll have to see about some of the Gold Cup rosters. So we don't know about Romario Williams yet. And when you get to that match against Toronto where you're not going to have Joseph Martinez unless something really goes wrong for Venezuela or he's allowed to leave early. You might not have Romario Williams because he might be what Jamaica at the Gold Cup. Looks like now at least you have Tito Villalba who can move up top. But that could be an interesting lineup in Toronto on June 26th.
Emery Russell, great win against the solid Minnesota United. It's funny how we were all booing the refs for the large amount of stoppage time at first, but by the time he blew the final whistle, we all wished he'd put 10 up on the board. Hashtag overreaction Thursday. Hashtag Thursday thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. It felt, it was correct, I think, because of the stoppage with the clash of heads with Kallman and LGP and the tape job and all of that. So, it felt like the LAFC game last year in a lot of ways. A game where Atlanta played well but didn't play as well as a 3-0 win. They played well. The LAFC game did not feel like a 5-0 win at all. But you still played well. That's kind of how it felt. And this was a game where you got those kind of garbage time goals to extend it and maybe give you a different feeling. The way the game was played, no, Atlanta United didn't dominate to 3-0, but the effect of those late goals will definitely help this team going forward. And it gives the squad a different vibe coming out of the building than they would have if it had finished at 1-0, even though that's probably the feeling of where this game was a narrow win, but a win. But you get 3, you feel really good. You have that extra little pep in your step. You have that extra big smile leaving the building. You have those just extra good feelings that hopefully will carry over to Saturday against Chicago, because right now you need whatever lift you can find. Because, again, you're not going to dominate this match for 90 minutes. I don't think Chicago can either. You have to be as good as you can for as long as you can, and we'll see if Atlanta can accomplish that this weekend. Let's take a break. We're going to get Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic on the line to talk to us with his thoughts about the match and his thoughts looking ahead to Chicago right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down Here for May 30th. It's an overreaction Thursday. Atlanta 3-0 winners over the Loons of Minnesota United. And to help us break everything down, Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic joins us. Hola, Felipe.
Hola, buenos días.
Oh,
¿Qué pasó? Todo bien. How are you guys?
Tired, but good.
Yeah.
One more game on the first team side before they get a little bit of a break before Open Cup kicks off, and then the twos are back. So, there's not as much of a break, but at least it's just a little bit slower paced because these last few weeks have been absolute insanity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the players are looking forward to kind of getting past Saturday, and again, they have Open Cup as well. It's not like everyone's just taking a 3-week vacation, but there is some downtime, and I'm assuming that Frank de Boer will take advantage. He's going to rest some players, some starters, and rotate a little bit. He did say that he's going to Open Cup is something that the club will take very seriously, but in that same sentence, he mentioned that he would rotate. So, how much rotation will the club see? I mean, he's going to be forced to rotate more than he has before, just because of the Copa America absences and Gold Cup call-ups. But I think last night even you could see there were still some tired legs in that first half.
Yeah, I think as it went on too, and it felt like, and this is what I've been trying to stress, I don't think there's a team in the league right now that can dominate a match for 90 minutes with the compressed schedule. I think everybody is kind of finding those moments that they can control and trying to get the most out of them. I felt like Atlanta had about 55 good minutes in them last night. And first half was good, even though there were some of those moments that you talk about. Start to the second half was good, and then it felt like Minnesota started to find themselves a little bit as the second half went on.
Yeah, it was kind of a classic MLS match, and I don't mean that in kind of a coy way or anything like that. But we talked about it last week. In my opinion, it was very tactical at times. Both teams really keeping their shape, making sure that they were in the right shape, both defensively and while in possession. Really closing things down. I tweeted that at times. It wasn't a great first half, and it wasn't because the play was necessarily so poor, but they were just like it's that precision that Frank de Boer has spoken about a lot this year of just the first touch, the final ball. That's still not there, and I think that is a byproduct of fatigue. It's a byproduct of still the team, getting used to each other. PT starts, sometimes he doesn't start. I think when he comes on, he really wants to make an impact. And so, those were things that I was seeing in the first half. I thought Minnesota, they were pretty, without Escobar's goal, I'm sure they would have been very happy going into, halftime with a 0-0 draw, leaving Atlanta with a point. But once they were down, I didn't think they had a lot of answers. Even though, to your point, Jason, I think they got a little bit of a second win, which, again, every team is getting against Atlanta. There's a moment throughout the season where one team kind of gets a second wind on Atlanta, and they kind of make a game of it. And that happened again last night. I thought there were a few players that were struggling a bit defensively because they were kind of on the back foot. But I was listening to the show right before I jumped on, and you're right. I think we would be having a different conversation, had this game ended 1-0. It ended 3-0, and those those 2 goals from Joseph, opportunistic in a way, but also what we've been talking about, like how can Atlanta, find that form when a team is really pressing them for an equalizer. And that first, the first one from Joseph was that, I talked to Franco about it. I was like, talk about that ball you gave Julian. It was beautiful. And it had to be perfect. It had to be a perfect ball that he kind of lobbed over a pressing defender. And Julian Gressel, who I felt was one of the most fatigued players out there, just boom, caught a second win on that play. Broke through 2 defenders and sent Joseph in. So there was a sense of a little, I wouldn't say relief, but that it was more of a well-deserved win than maybe the score sheet, a different story than the score sheet really told.
2 thoughts, and we can go whichever way you want to go here. The idea of PT and Franco on the right, where you could have PT cut in and work the left foot and Franco working in from behind, or the notion, once again, of you have a player like PT Martinez getting kicked and chopped down and you're not getting calls, and the frustration continues for fans and for PT's teammates and for PT, where you have a $15 million DP who's getting kicked and not getting calls. Which one do you want to tackle first?
I'll tackle PT first. I thought he was good last night, honestly. Not great, not $15 million great, but pretty damn good. I think he shows these flashes of skill, of elite skill. I think we can see that at times. But like I mentioned before, I think he presses a little bit. He's still getting used to really the reduced space that he has almost every time he's on the ball. Occasionally his pace of play is a little higher than maybe it should be. But he was much better and he was dangerous. And there were times where Minnesota didn't know what to do with him. They couldn't handle him. He was a nuisance. And so it's like those things that I refer to with PT about, like the first touch in central midfield, like don't lose that ball. It's still happening. The foul that he thinks he's going to get, that a lot of skilled players and creative players around the world get when you beat a guy and you kind of take a loose arm to the chest and you just kind of like stop play. That doesn't. I don't think any player gets that call in Major League Soccer, and so he's going to get used to that and just kind of play through those things, and that's going to be a huge benefit for Atlanta United. So. I think that's a positive for coming out of last night was his play. And listen, Franco, I think right now I'm looking at Twitter. Kevin Egan is talking about Franco Escobar, about how important he is and what a player and he deserves. Like it's well deserved. Like last night there were tweets about he's the most underrated player in the league, or one of the most underrated players in the league, and so. I think we can argue whether or not that's true. I think he seems underrated because he's not a best 11 player yet. He hasn't been voted into that type of, class. He's not a Kamar Lawrence fullback where people, again, outside of Atlanta, recognize him as kind of a lockdown fullback that can change a game. I think here in Atlanta, since last season, we've seen this, the potential that Franco Escobar has, and both as an attacking wingback and really a tough tackling fullback. Really early last summer, I remember I asked LGP about him, and he said, he rarely loses a tackle. He rarely loses a 1v1 tackle, and that's very important for this type of system, this type of defense that you're going to find yourself, in 1v1 moments throughout the match, and you need to win those moments or you're going to get beat. So yeah, I think he's just coming to his own. On Friday, he told me he wanted to continue his goal this season was to kind of continue the form that he ended with last season, which was very good. The injury at the beginning of the season really kind of like knocked the wind out of him. But even when he was injured, there was talk of, how big a loss is this for Atlanta United? It wasn't like, some random fullback got hurt. I think we understood that it was going to be, a significant loss for the team and for Frank de Boer to have to deal with early on. And so now we're seeing a guy that can affect the game, that can attack, that can finish when he's in the box, and he's defending just as well. So that PT Franco relationship would be similar to what Garza and Almiron had the last 2 seasons, which was extremely effective and extremely important for Atlanta United. Can that happen? Yeah, I think it would be tough for Frank to really say, hey, let's do that, because you're asking a lot of both players then. You're probably sacrificing a little bit of defensive stability in order to do that. But then at the same time, you have 2 players that are very skilled, very technical on the ball, that I think understand each other. I've seen it in training, just when they're messing around and juggling between each other. It's pretty good. It looks like 2 guys that if you ask them to just kind of go out and play, 2v2 against someone, I'm going to put money on Franco and PT. So it's a relationship that could, blossom, tactically into something very positive for Atlanta United.
Yeah, let's dig into those little societies a little bit, because that wasn't one that we necessarily saw coming with Pitti and Franco, because Pitti had generally been in the middle or on the left. We saw it for the first time in Salt Lake City, and they both come on fresh. It makes sense to pair them up, and it works to great effect. So you start with it here. I thought another little society that was very, very interesting last night, because it played out differently than we've really ever seen, was the midfield trio with Nagbe, Remedi, and Gressel. Gressel was pretty consistent in what he was doing. He was the most forward of the 3. He was playing as close to a number 10 as you had in the system. But Nagbe and Remedi were really interesting. It was obvious to me early on that Nagbe was playing more centrally than Remedi for large stretches. And when the team was pushed back and had to defend for periods of time, it was Nagbe central, and it was Remedi and Gressel on either side of him. I think that was definitely by design, but I think it was a very smart thing from Frank de Boer, and something we hadn't seen. As he gets to know this group, it feels like he's starting to find these little relationships and these more subtle things in his system that are helping Atlanta United grow.
I would agree. I think going back to Friday when Darlington was available to the media, I asked him about the Salt Lake game and what his role was, and without saying did you play as a 10, I asked him to describe, like, you were pushed forward, what was asked of you from the manager, and he was honest. He was like, I was asked to push forward. The team was he wanted the team to feed me the ball if I was higher up the pitch, but that didn't happen, because honestly they didn't have as much as the ball that they usually do against Salt Lake, and it wasn't that effective, to be honest. But when I asked him, do you not prefer, but are you getting used to playing a little bit more in a role where you're a little bit more drawn back in central midfield? And he said yes. He added that he'll play anywhere that the coach asked him to play, but I think you're right. I think that is a more comfortable position for him, which again started last season under Tata, where he was meant to be the central midfielder that controlled tempo, and usually that's a guy that's going to linger a little bit pushed back, a little bit further forward. Not forward in the attack, but just slightly in front of the back 3 or the back 4. And where he can get on the ball, he can play zonally as far when he's not in possession. And yesterday Frank mentioned that, to your point, Jason, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but I think Doug asked him about the midfield, moving Gressel into the middle, like how that worked out, what was the thinking there. And it was tactical. It was based on the opponent. He wanted to limit Alonso's space anytime he was on the ball. Alonso's obviously he's kind of like a tough tackling defender, but if he's on the ball, he can pick you apart. And there were a couple other guys that he mentioned for Minnesota that are just kind of talented guys when they're on the ball. So he wanted to limit that a little bit. And I think it worked. I really do. I think what you and I have talked about this a lot, like who's going to be that central midfielder between Remedi and Nagbe that's further back, that's controlling the tempo, that's getting the ball from the center backs, that's kind of pinging passes around and starting attacks. And a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I think it's going to be Nagbe, or I'm sorry, I mentioned that it was going to be Remedi, and you mentioned it could be either or, and I think that's what you're seeing. That's what has always been, I think, Frank de Boer's goal with those two types of players, two very good players that can rotate within their own kind of space within the middle. And we've seen Remedi kind of go 1v1 on a guy, and he's pretty skilled. He's got some street ball skill moves that he can bust out on people. And he has vision in the attack. So I think maybe springing him a little bit was a way to maybe, I don't know, heighten the intensity of the attack. Now, my only, I guess, critique, and again, we can go back and talk fatigue, but I think what Atlanta United is missing maybe a little bit is those three central midfielders really being like ball hawking in recovery. And that's not happening as much because I think when they're not in possession, they tend to fall back into shape and get set and look for those chances to counter press instead of just like their first instinct is to go and get that ball. When I look at LAFC, that's what I see sometimes when they're not in a tight match. Their central midfielders are quicker. They're a little bit more aggressive when they lose the ball. It's like as soon as they lose it, they just attack. And so Atlanta doesn't do that as much as maybe in the past. I know obviously Miguel was a big part of that, but yeah, I thought yesterday. It was interesting to see. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. I think Julian Gressel is getting much better in the middle. He's been pretty public about, very open about that being a new role for him. It's quicker. I think he prefers to be on the touchline, but he has the skills to do that.
Another guy that I wanted to kind of get into with you about is the continuing, I guess, to create a word, the comfortability of Dion Pereira and how he's just evolving and becoming more comfortable in the roles that he's being given right now by Frank de Boer. When you look at what Dion did last night, Dion answered the call about making sure that you answered defensively and offensively with the one defensive move that sticks in everybody's mind about acting more like a Falcons defensive back at one point. But the continued growth of Dion Pereira, just getting used to life with the first team.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I think defensively also, I noticed this at one point during the game where he had a really, I don't know if it was intentional, but it was like it looked like a really smart tactical foul that just completely stopped a counter for Minnesota. Atlanta was attacking on their end. This was in the second half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was late. I was standing
late.
up cheering as Dion Pereira just cleaned somebody out.
He came from the other sideline, and he just like crashed into this guy for Minnesota that had the ball. And, it was an obvious foul, but I was sitting there like, oh, that was smart. That was smart. That shows a lot of, savviness on his part, obviously effort to get, run across the field and commit a foul. Like, I don't know if he was like, I'm going to stop this guy. He might have run a little too hard, but in the end, a smart tactical foul that this team needs. This is, Frank was crying for it basically, during the Salt Lake match, because those are smart moments in a game where you can just like kill off an opponent with those types of decisions. And so that was great to see from a player like Dion. I asked Frank after the game to describe the instruction that he gives Dion. I think him and I were talking about, we talk about this a lot. I wonder if Frank he's probably wondering if I ask any other questions, but I'm always asking him about, again, the progress that this team is making or not making when they are playing against compact and bunkered opponents, because I know he's been open about the fact that they train it, but they're training it daily. And so one of the things that helps break down an opponent is a winger that is brave enough to take a guy on 1v1 throughout the match. Because that'll break a bunker defense down pretty fast. Whether you want to sit back, if you know a guy is going to take you one-on-one, you're going to backpedal, you're going to dive, you're going to question yourself, and you're going to be defending in your own box. So, Frank was open about that. Yes, he's like, that's why Dion has been on the field, and he's earned the playing time because he's one of the best 1v1 players that the team has. And he mentioned his work rate, that he's been able to increase his work rate so that he's not only a one-dimensional 1v1 guy, but he can kind of take on some defensive responsibilities as well. That was one from that question I asked is, have you asked him to be aggressive? Because I think Dion he can push it a little bit more. I think he can be a little bit more aggressive because I think defenders are starting to worry when they see him with the ball on his left foot. And that was when Frank said, yes, of course. Like, I've always wanted him to be aggressive. That's when he went into this interesting anecdote that when he first met Dion, he was unimpressed with his handshake. He thought it was a weak handshake. And that's when he told him, like, you need to, shake my hand like a man and play like a man, play like a professional, have the confidence, in yourself and in your abilities, to go out there. And then after in the locker room, I asked Dion as well, like, tell me about your 1v1 ability, like how it's helping this team. And he told me that his teammates now are at the point where they're like, dude, anytime you have the ball, take a guy on. In this league, you can be a difference maker if you're able to do that. And so I think that's what we are seeing, a player that that is confident in his 1v1 ability. He's a left-footed player, so that's always going to that always makes you question, when you're a defender, what's this guy going to do? And he has just like a very subtle kind of snake. It's not really an official snake move, but it is kind of an in and out move that works. And so if that continues, and if his final ball can get a little crisper, the goals will come.
Yeah, I think he has this little thing that he does really well, where he's got a change of pace. He's not blazing speed.
No.
But he has a change of pace, and he uses his shoulders really, really well when he got you faced up, because he'll drop the shoulder and then hit a second gear going the other way, and it's consistently working right now. He told us last night on the Full-Time Report when he joined us that something that he's really gotten a lot of help from his teammates and the coaching staff is tell him early on, as early as he can in a match, go for the 1v1, take it, and then they always give him that confidence to keep doing it. And I mean, we're seeing it in these last two games where Dion Pereira does not look like a teenager making his first couple starts at the senior level. I mean, he looks like a seasoned pro.
Yeah, and I think the first time I saw him play was early in the winter. I think it was probably end of January, February in training. And it was kind of a mixed team scrimmage, first teamers against second teamers, and he was on the second team, but he was playing a little centrally. I remember thinking, I mean this in a positive way. I was like, he's kind of a ball hog. He was just like kind of running at people with his head down, centrally. And then when he got to the box, he would just get closed down by LGP, Parkhurst, and Lorenowitz. They would just like stop him. And I was like, if he lifts his head up, he has something though. There was something there that I'm like, okay, this kid, he wants to play. He wants to take a guy on, and he's obviously improved and he's trained it. And I agree with you. He's not the guy that's going to just run past you. There was a ball that PT gave him, which is a great ball from PT that split, the fullback, the right fullback and the right center back. But Dion wasn't ever going to get to it. He's not a guy that you can, Tito Villalba, that you can send a ball through deep into a corner and he's going to beat his man with pace. But if you play it to his feet and you allow him to face up, he has this sometimes it looks like he's kind of too casual in his movement. And Frank talked about that yesterday. He even kind of like tried to imitate his body movement of a way. It's like, it doesn't always have to be, he kind of just like waved his arms kind of in this like slow motion type of way, because that's what Dion does. But that fools defenders. That's what got Murillo against New York. Murillo was just like, didn't know what to do. He was jumping, he was stabbing, and Pereira was just kind of like doing like body feints that weren't at pace, and that gets defenders. And so, yeah, it's going to be important that he continues to grow in confidence. And as defenders in this league, let me tell you, in this league, they watch tape, they watch film, and they adjust. And that can be the difference, I think, between a couple goals in a game. And so he's going to have to be ready for that.
So let's move on to some non-Atlanta United things, tangentially related though. Last night you talked to Joseph Martinez about the Mexico-Venezuela game on June 5th, and I believe we're over 40,000 on tickets sold for that one already, and with a strong walk-up expected. What do you expect out of that game here in Atlanta? It's kind of got all kinds of subplots with Tata Martino returning to Atlanta, with Joseph representing Venezuela in Atlanta. There's a lot of potential for some big emotion in this one.
Yeah, and it was an emotional, response from Joseph when he was asked. I didn't ask the question, but he was asked about who does he think will receive the bigger ovation on Wednesday night? Will it be Tata, or will it be himself, Joseph? And Joseph was very right away just humble. He's like, it's going to be Tata. He deserves it. But yeah, his voice cracked a little bit. When he was talking about Tata and how important the manager was in his life. He said he was very open. He said he's more than a coach. He was a father. And that's when he kind of his voice cracked a little bit, and he's like, I get emotional just when I think about it. But he thinks that it's a night that Tata deserves. Kind of a night where the fans can come out and be neutral. You can come out and just kind of watch the game and give the ex-manager, the manager that Darren Eales called a legend. Okay. He gave him that kind of moniker, and come out and show your appreciation, because according to Joseph, he said he didn't get the farewell that he thought he deserved, and he made a point to say, yeah, he won the title, and I think the players wanted to send him out with that, but these are Joseph's words. He's as a person, he just felt that he deserved a little bit better. So I think there are subplots. I think that's one. That it's Tata Martino, legendary Atlanta United coach, coming back to Atlanta. I think the other one is who he's managing. It's Mexico. It's a Gold Cup preparation. They are the favorites. They are expected to win the Gold Cup, and he's very much under the microscope early on already, with his call-ups, with the players that have decided not to come and be part of this roster for the Gold Cup. Some injuries that he's had to deal with. And let's not forget that Venezuela is a very good team. They are good. So, a negative result against Venezuela is going to put a lot of pressure on Tata Martino, his staff, and on the Mexican national team heading into a tournament that they are expected to play well in and essentially dominate.
And I think that matches like this one, where you have the casual Atlanta United fan, or just the fan of Atlanta United, I think that for them to have a match like this where they can be in neutral, I think that for the growth of the sport in the Southeast on an international level, I think that matches like this are just as important as coming to see an Atlanta United match in an MLS sense. I think that having these international matches here, and honestly, there should be more of them, whether it's a U.S. men's national team or whatever. I think that when it comes to the growth of the sport in the Southeast, I think that nights like this are just as important, and you get to do that on an international scale.
Yeah, that's the future of a stadium like Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's a reason why they built it. You build it and they will come, and I think, this is a city that wants to host international soccer matches from now on, and until the end of time, if you will. But this is the first kind of opportunity to do that, and against two very good teams, two teams that are attractive to the Latino population in Atlanta and in the Southeast, and also, like you mentioned, John, just kind of like the neutral fan. I've been to a couple, I think 2 Mexico matches at the old Georgia Dome. As a neutral, I went. Mexico, Nigeria, I believe, and Mexico, Bosnia. And they were both fun matches because it's international soccer. The Mexico fans always come out. It's a big deal for them to see their national team when they travel around the United States. And so this is what Atlanta wants to become. They want to be a destination for not just MLS and really kind of like CONCACAF Champions League type of matchups, but international soccer. And with the World Cup, coming in 2026, Atlanta no doubt wants to be one of those, host cities that is looked upon to be recognized in the United States as an international soccer city.
Speaking of Mexico and speaking of the Mexican national team, you've got some work coming up, right?
I do. So as part of my responsibilities with the Athletic and the Athletic Soccer, I'll be covering the Mexico national team during the Gold Cup. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get out around the country and see this team and see them play and see them under Tata and how they manage that pressure in an international tournament that quite honestly, it's Gold Cup is always interesting, right? Like you look at the groups and you think a lot of teams that are just going to get spanked really. And it's only U.S. and Mexico. That's you're just kind of expecting that those two teams to get to the final. But in the end, it is still a continental tournament, and I think even a country like Canada, excited to see them play Mexico in Denver. A team with some young players, good players, with a lot to prove, in the region. So yeah, it'll be fun. To all the Athletic Soccer readers and subscribers, look out for that because we're going to attack the Gold Cup from all angles. And I think with where Mexico is headed, with their new technical staff, with Tata, with the young generation of players, the expectations that this national team has, it's going to be a fun team to watch. And there's always, as we know, I think early last year, I think we mentioned that Mexico, the media that covers the Mexican national team is kind of like a tire fire. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in head first and be part of it. Are you going to jump in
with a torch, or are you going to jump in with a fire extinguisher?
I was going to say,
yeah, good question. That is a good question. It'll be. We'll see. I think Tata will be pleased to see a friendly face.
Make sure that you bring the fire suit.
Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see how the team and the media reacts to him as well. We know that he's very open and transparent and kind of savvy with the media, but it's all about the results.
Looking forward to it, and we'll talk to you next week after that match here in Atlanta. There's going to be a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Mexico Gold Cup, Atlanta United Open Cup, Copa America. That's happening. You're going to have a U20 World Cup getting into the knockout rounds. It's a crazy summer, and we're just getting started with it.
Yeah, it's an awesome summer. It's an awesome summer to be, a soccer fan, whether you're a lifer or just getting into it. International soccer during the summer is a treat. I think, anytime there's an international tournament, you can wake up in the morning and grab a cup of coffee and watch soccer in your PJs. That's the best. And so it feels like those World Cup summers where you're able to do that. And we're going to be doing that all the way into the July. So yeah, enjoy it, take advantage of it, ask your significant other for permission. Because these games are coming up.
That's the most crucial aspect of it all. Make sure that you have permission.
Yes, plan ahead. Don't just say, I'm going to be on the couch all day. Get some flowers or plan a date night afterwards. But there's soccer to be watched.
Get that permission and jump into the tire fire with the rest of us. It'll be lots of fun.
Exactly.
Felipe, man, thanks for the time this morning. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take care.
We're going to take a break, come back, go through the action from last night in U.S. Open Cup and MLS right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, May 30th edition of the show. Overreaction Thursday thoughts, whichever hashtag you want to use, you can pick. Let's go through the action from last night around MLS. You had some interesting matches that we need to talk about. One was north of the border, Montreal, 2-1 winners over Real Salt Lake. The Impact had to hold on a bit here. RSL threw everything at them at the end, could not find the equalizer. Mike Petke did rotate his squad a bit. They've had a lot of matches in Utah as of late, and it showed. Montreal looked like the better team, the more seasoned team here, and Sam Johnson, 84th minute goal, made it a wild finish, but the Impact with a big 3 points.
Yeah, and you get Omar Brown on the board, Safir Taider on the board, and once again you're looking at a Montreal team that we knew was stout defensively, and you just look at them, and it's, for me, you look at Montreal and it's like, all right, you have the defense established, and now you're hoping that you're looking at the offense to get untracked, and especially when you can bring in folks who are hopefully healthy for the long term. But, once again, you get a goal from Taider and a goal from Omar Brown, who we saw in CONCACAF in the early stages of CONCACAF Champions League make a name for himself. I thought that was a good pickup for Montreal, and they end up getting full points off of a squad that got rotated a bit.
It was a good pickup to begin with, and then with the injury to Nacho Piatti, and he did not play last night for Montreal, It's been a critical pickup. Omar Brown has been maybe one of the stories of the 2019 CONCACAF Champions League with his performances with Independiente from Panama and parlaying that into a loan to Montreal and making the most of it. He's scoring goals. He's getting assists. He's been very, very good. He scored in first half stoppage time to get things kick-started for Montreal last night. So they get the win. DC and Chicago over at Audi Field, 3-3. They split the points. Wild, crazy match in this one. Back and forth all over the place. Chicago jumps out to a 2-0 lead in the first 14 minutes. Ulysses Segura goes nuts on either side of halftime to equalize. Luciano Acosta in the 81st for DC. And then Francisco Calvo, after a great ball from Bastian Schweinsteiger to put it back into the mixer. Calvo gets there before Bill Hamid and heads it over with to get the 3-3 final result. Wild match for both teams, and I wonder how both are going to come out of it with matches upcoming on the weekend.
Yeah, and you look at what Chicago did with the guys that were there last night. Schweinsteiger, Calvo, Katai, McCarty, Mihailovic, Frankowski, Sapong each played 90 minutes. And so, and Gaetan played 76 before he got subbed out for Bronico. But a lot of dudes that you really rely on during your season put in a boatload of minutes last night, and then you're having to do a quick turn to come down to play Atlanta United. 23 shots last night for Chicago on a wild one, 36 for both teams overall.
Chicago did not look the same after Johan Kappelhoff came off in the first half, and they were up 2-0 before he came off. That's an issue for them. They don't have a ton of defensive depth, and the thing that's tricky about it with Veljko Paunovic is you've had a lot of injuries, you've had a lot of things you've had to deal with that are outside of your control, but you're not really getting any consistent tactics because of that. So you're flipping and flopping and throwing things around and trying to get 3 in the back, sometimes 4 in the back, sometimes 5 in the back. There's no real continuity. So what does Chicago do in Atlanta on Saturday? That's going to be a big question, with a lot of tired legs coming in for Chicago in that one. Really just a wild result. Feels like DC should have gotten more out of it. Feels like Chicago should have gotten more out of it. Ends up in a draw. Another draw, Philadelphia definitely could have gotten more out of it at home. They draw 1-1 with Colorado. It's a goal from Jonathan Lewis. Pretty late for the Rapids in the 72nd minute. Philadelphia's got to start winning these types of games if they're going to be among the best in the East.
And, yeah, I know that we mentioned the Connor Casey effect, and you and I both had Colorado's win streak continuing as our surprise of the night yesterday. But, you're looking at what Colorado's been able to do after the coaching change, and the players are responding to it. Jonathan Lewis gets the goal for Colorado. And, for Philadelphia, once again, looking at some of the numbers, 26 shots, 7 on target, and 17 crosses when they had 60% of the possession, and you only get out of there at 1-1. So, obviously a disappointing night when you're looking at things from the Union perspective, but once again, something that Colorado can take from it, getting a point on the road and continuing to carry the momentum ever since Anthony Hudson got shown the door.
Yeah, outstanding finish from Jonathan Lewis on the back post after a good cross-in first-time finish to give them the point. You can just tell Colorado's playing with a different level of intensity than they had before. Final match of the night, LA Galaxy go to Kansas City and get a 2-0 win. Matt Beasler was hobbling around for a large stretch of it. Kansas City's getting closer to healthy, but they're not healthy. They had 18 shots here, only for 9 for the Galaxy, but they can't find the goals. Zlatan in his return gets an assist and gets the goal to finish it off, and the Galaxy get a much-needed win.
And I think this is the first time in recent memory that Peter Vermes was actually able to put out an 18-man roster for a match. And you're hoping that it's speaking toward the overall health being regained for a sporting team that Vermes has just kind of had to manage his way through and try to get the best results out. And there have been, when you have a Johnny Russell hat trick and things like that, that'll get you results in matches where a lot of folks don't think you have a snowball's chance in hell of getting a point, then I think it just speaks to what Peter Vermes has been able to do to this point. But to what the Galaxy were able to do last night, Alvarez gets one and then Zlatan got the other. So, 18 shots for Sporting, and you finally put 18 guys out there, but the LAG get the full points out of it.
Yeah, the Galaxy were more clinical in front of goal, and they get the result. Open Cup results last night. The Florida Soccer Soldiers could not make it to the fourth round. They lost 1-0 in North Carolina to NCFC. The Soldiers had a red card as well in that one. Pittsburgh 1-0 winners over India. Louisville City 1-0 winners over Birmingham Legion. St. Louis FC 3-1 over Forward Medicine. Memphis 901 demolition job. Hartford Athletic 4-0 Charleston and Nashville. Charleston took the lead. Nashville equalized in around the 70th minute, and then it goes to extra time and penalties. Charleston wins 3-0 on penalties.
And now, for the record, what did you say with about 15 minutes to go in regulation for Nashville and Charleston?
It was probably 10 minutes left to go, finishing up with everything in the booth, and it was, yep, this is going to go to extra time penalty. Charleston's going to win. It just felt like a game where there were no more goals in it, and it was going to go to extra time and penalties, and I had more faith in Charleston finding a way through it. It's just something they do in this competition. Very good in the Cup. They move on to the fourth round again this time around, and Nashville has to be scratching their heads a bit after last year they beat the Rapids, and they have a good run in the Open Cup. This year, don't get to that stage, and that's a bit of a disappointment for Gary Smith and his group. Austin Bold, 4-2 winners over San Antonio. New Mexico United, 2-1 over Colorado Springs. Two wild ones last night. Sacramento Republic, 1-0 over Fresno with a goal very late in extra time. And the craziest one, Orange County FC from the NPSL. They move on. Back and forth and chaos and wildness at Cashman Field for Las Vegas. Junior Sandoval from Centennial High School here in Atlanta gets an equalizer in about the 85th minute. Orange County scores 2 more after that. It was chaos in it. But Paul Caligiuri's NPSL amateur crew from Orange County, they move on to the fourth round. They're the last team standing from the Open qualifiers, and it's an amazing accomplishment for Caligiuri.
Vegas had 24 shots, 2/3 of the possession, and
a red
2
card.
goals, and the red card by Christian Torres in the 74th. Then I think one of the names of the night, Blake Frischnecht, gets the one that breaks it from 3-3 and turns it 4-3, and then Oscar Flores gets one 2 minutes later. So you tip your hat to Orange County FC for making it to round number 4, and as of right now, they are listed as the West Pod. So we'll see what happens at the top of the hour with the Twitters.
Okay, now a couple things about the pods to keep in mind, because this is not confirmed that this is the case.
Correct.
Joe Tanzi writes for Pro Soccer USA. It is not 100% confirmed that these are the pods, but this is what he has published. There hasn't been anything to refute it as of yet. Northeast, New England, NYCFC, New York Red Bulls, and North Carolina FC. Mid-Atlantic, it's Columbus, it's DC United, it's Philadelphia, it's Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Southeast, it's Atlanta, it's Charleston, it's Memphis, it's Orlando. Central, it's Chicago, it's Cincinnati, Louisville, and St. Louis. Northern Plains pool, it's Colorado, Minnesota, New Mexico, and Sporting Kansas City. Southern Plains, it's Austin, Dallas, Houston, OKC Energy. Out west, LA Galaxy, LAFC, Orange County FC, and Real Salt Lake. In the Northwest, Portland, Sacramento, San Jose, and Seattle. And if the draw goes the way we expect that it will, you will see 2 matchups created in each pool. So you'll see the matchup created for the 4th round and then the round of 16 matchup between those 2 winners. That's what we're expecting. We're not going to get to see it because it's not going to be broadcast. It's going to be announced at Open Cup on Twitter. So we're going to stay on with you and give you that as it is released. So we'll talk about what the matchups are and who got a good draw, who got a bad draw, what Atlanta United's draw is, and does Atlanta United get a 4th round Open Cup matchup with Orlando City? It is possible, according to these pools that are out there right now. Let's take a break here. We'll come back. We'll hit Twitter while we're waiting on the U.S. Open Cup draw to happen at 11 o'clock. That's when it has been reported to be unveiled at Open Cup on Twitter. So let's take a break. We'll come back and get ready for that right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Overreaction Thursday here on SDH. Thursday thoughts as well. If you have Thursday thoughts, we'll take those as well. Let's hit the Twitters while we're waiting on the U.S. Open Cup to announce the fourth round. What do we have?
All right. The Soccer for Good OG, Jill Robbins. Great shot last night by you and Mike re LGP. That dude gives his all every game. May not always be perfect, but no one can question his effort, unique style and skill, nastiness and heart. What does the future hold for him? What's his ceiling? Can he please stay forever?
He's an interesting one. I mean, I could see him playing here for 10 years. I could see a very good club in Europe wanting to bring him in on a transfer. He's kind of in between in that. His age as well, like he's not going to be in as much demand as a Miguel Almiron or an Ezequiel Barco, but he's a player who could step in and play in Europe and be very, very good. And I think some of it's going to depend on what his ambition is. You know, he's talked about wanting to play for the Argentina national team. If he thinks he can get there here in Atlanta, I think he stays because he seems to be very comfortable. He's one of the leaders of the group. If he feels like he has to make a move to a different league because of that perception, he might go chase that because he spent some time in Europe and Belgium on loan early in his career, but not very long. And he was at a different point in his career there. I think he has a different level of confidence now. So if he has the right opportunity, would not surprise me to see him go, but I don't know how much he's chasing that opportunity to go.
Daniel Price says, well, that was a fun night. Even got Brad to sign my kit. Nicely done.
Oh, very nice.
The entire team played great. Excited for Saturday. I'm only worried that Chicago will come in and sit looking for a draw after their performance last night. Imagine they are gassed. Hashtag Thursday thoughts.
I don't think they come in and sit. That's one thing we haven't seen too much of from Veljko Paunovic. And I think with the character of the players that they have, it doesn't really fit their mentality. Now, do they play on the counter? Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I don't think they sit and just bunker and have no way to try to get out. So there's a difference, and we'll see how they approach it. I just think it's probably going to take until day of the match until they really know, like, all right, who's got what in the tank? Because Gaetan has just come back into the team. You know, you've got some older players in this group. Are they going to be ready to give you 90 minutes, or are they going to need to come off the bench? There's so many questions when it comes to Chicago for Saturday.
Nathan Pugh, this might be unpopular, but right now with what my eyes can see, Pereira does more for us than Villalba does. Pereira dribbles with purpose. Villalba dribbles in the red and out of control. Hashtag Overreaction Thursday.
They're different. They both dribble, and they're both completely fearless in taking defenders on. That's a good thing. Now, they do it in different ways. Tito is a little more direct, and he's going to try to beat you a little more with speed, although he does have the skill to pull a quick move and get around you. Dion is not the speed guy. He is the skill player, and he's going to beat you on the dribble with his individual skill. Both can be effective, and sometimes one can be more effective than the other. So I think Dion's been really, really good, and to put back-to-back games together that are this strong, that's a big accomplishment. Can he go 3 for 3? I think unless he needs the break, he's going to get that opportunity on Saturday.
Bartimus Prime for his overreaction Thursday. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. We subbed in Breck Shea and scored 2 goals. Also smart move by me this week to Captain Escobar.
Really smart move to Captain Escobar. That's a good call. Yeah, Breck came on at the end to see this thing out. Parkhurst gave you everything he could. Breck's going to stay at home a little more on the left, and Parkhurst is going to tuck in a little bit more as a left back. And when you went to the line of 5, it's a better fit for Breck. So I'm going to assume that was a coincidence. But Breck Shea did the job that was asked, and Parkhurst did the job that was asked. I think it's really good to see how layered Atlanta's approach is getting. You know, you look at Franco Escobar and the way he plays right back, and you look at Michael Parkhurst and the way he plays left back. They're very different, but they work in the ecosystem that Atlanta United is creating. And I think you're getting a group of players that are starting to understand their individual roles within the group and also understand their roles in their specific units and parts of the field. And Atlanta's better off for it right now.
Chris Hutchison, nice to see us slide up the scoreboard with a solid performance last night. A similar win against Chicago on Saturday would feel cathartic.
It'd be great. It'd be great to get. I liked the performance, and no, it wasn't 90 minutes, but I think the first half was as good as Atlanta's looked this season. I thought it was really good. I thought they were crisp. They lost that in the second half, but they saw the game out, and that's also impressive. So it's a really good win. And right now, it's just that time of the year where, look, it's hard to put together a dominating performance. And LAFC isn't doing it. I don't think anybody's really capable of it at the moment. So you're just stacking chips right now. And when you can stack 3 of them after a night like Atlanta had, and you get 3 goals to go along with it, even though you probably didn't have that type of true performance, you take it and you run, and you get ready to deal with a Chicago team that in some ways is happy they pulled a point out of it, and in other ways they feel like they lost points where they should have had a win. They shouldn't have conceded 3 goals after scoring twice to begin with. So it's a mixed set of emotions for Chicago coming in on Saturday.
Slickster. I was playing softball, so I didn't see the game live. When I saw the 1-0 scoreline at the 80th minute, I was like, I guess that's a harumph emoji or a worried emoji. I can't tell. Then I rewatched the game and saw how the scoreline before stoppage time definitely did not represent the total dominance of the game by Atlanta United. To continue the thought, Atlanta United had so many great scoring chances that were either just off or a great save by the Loons keeper. PT especially was absolutely robbed of goal number 2. Would love to see the XG plot of the game.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. There is definitely a perception thing going on around this team at times. Like you see a 1-0, it's like, oh, that's bad. No, it wasn't bad. And when you watch it and you look at it, yeah, you're like, oh, wait a minute. No, that's not a bad thing. It's just like possession. It's like, oh, no, that's bad. Oh, wait, no, that's not necessarily bad. This game is okay. You were fine with 50% possession. It didn't feel all that different from a game where you had 55. Each game is different. And what I like is that Atlanta is finding results in different types of matches. And they just have to continue that, and they just have to continue to build. This is a long, long run this season, and you want to be improving week after week. And the results are not the only way to define if you're improving. And I feel like this team is adding more pieces, more layers, more tools as they go. And that's a good thing overall.
And I know that you'll keep an eye on @Open Cup, so I'm just going to keep going here until you start hitting the horn. Trains. How about Vegas Lights and MLS? Gonna love llamas on the touchline. Bring on more sports betting, etc. Best weekend away trip in the league with a question mark. Miami and Nashville up there, I think, too.
Well, again, I mean, you need to give a little more detail here because Las Vegas Lights are not in MLS just yet, but there were some announcements yesterday that it looks like they might be trying to put together a bid to get into MLS. So that stuff came out yesterday late in the day. It's early days, and I think they are still behind Sacramento, St. Louis, San Diego, Charlotte, Phoenix, Detroit. I think Las Vegas has a lot of work to do, but with the Raiders coming to town, it feels like a different time for Las Vegas sports, and sounds like soccer's trying to capitalize on it. So keep an eye on it, but I think they're a longer shot than some of the other teams and other cities that are already in the race.
Kevin from Charlotte, his overreaction Thursday is last year Joseph would have had at least a hat trick in the game last night. He's just been off form a bit this year. Once he gets going, look out.
I don't know if he would have had a hat trick last night. It didn't feel like it was one where he had a ton of chances. He had a flying volley that would have been an amazing goal if he had put it away. I thought it was one of Joseph's best performances. That's the thing, is last night was a game where Joseph was taking up a position out wide a lot of times to try to pull defenders with him, also to try to make a later run into the 18 against three center backs. So drifting out wide more for Joseph, that's really smart because it's twofold. If you pull a defender with you, okay, cool, you're creating space, you're creating channels. If you don't, and you get involved in the build-up play there, and then you play somebody down the wing, and you are looking for that cross or that pass, you're arriving in the dangerous area at the right time as opposed to being stationary there with three center backs around you. I thought Joseph was really, really good all the way around last night. The goals weren't necessarily reflective of that.
Scott can't listen live, but he is looking forward to our third annual Open Cup match with Charleston at Kennesaw. Hashtag no GoBots, no transparency.
That is not confirmed as of yet. We don't know as of yet. We're waiting on Open Cup. So GoBots are slow to tweet, I guess. Yeah, that's where we're at here. This is really good times from the U.S. Open Cup. Okay, we have a tweet. Greetings. The U.S. Open Cup official draw for the fourth round will begin now. Stay tuned.
All right, so we'll stay tuned and we'll keep going because we still have more overreaction.
Tuned because we're just watching Twitter instead of a stream, but whatever.
Yeah. David Benson. Since MLS has been one of the first to implement VAR, why do they not use goal line technology for matches? I didn't think it was a goal last night, but a bad angle might sway the VAR.
Two different things. Goal line technology is really expensive, and it's used. How many times have we had a goal line technology call in MLS with Atlanta United? Once a season?
Yeah.
VAR gives you more things that it can do, so you're going to invest there first. When goal line technology is cheaper and you can do both, you will. But right now, VAR gives you a pretty good look at anything on the goal line, but it gives you so much more than that. So it makes sense. I didn't see an angle. I didn't see anything that made me think that ball was over the line last night. I was never worried about it because the angles I saw, it looked like the ball was even with the post.
Let's see. Chandler Creel. Does at Ike Opara get credit for the assist for Joseph's second goal? Hashtag Unite and Conquer. Hashtag Oopsie.
That's just mean. He does not, but that's just mean. Poor Ike Opara.
Kefsey had two screaming moments to share from last night on Overreaction Thursday. One, I was scared and angry when Dunladi appeared to go through the back of Miles off the ball, parenthesis, tripped or tangled, question mark, close parenthesis. And I thought there was a loon hand on Brad's series of saves.
Yeah, that's what Brad was saying. I couldn't tell. I was so worried about where the ball was. I did not get a great look at that. But that's what Brad Gazan was thinking as well. There was a big reaction from Atlanta United players and Brad about a potential handball in that situation. Open Cup has tweeted this. This draw determines the home and away sides for the 16 matchups during this round, the fourth round. The U.S. Open Cup fourth round is scheduled for June 11th and 12th. Exact dates, times, and venues will be released later today. So we're still waiting.
Okay. So we're still going.
Yep.
Austin at bring in DeBeef. The reason people like less possession is because we look more dangerous on the counterattack than possessing with more side-to-side passes.
We used to look more dangerous on the counterattack. I don't think you look more dangerous on the counterattack right now. And again, I disagree with the fact that you want to play without the ball. I don't think that is the way to play in the long term. I think if you control the ball, you control more of how the match can play out. Last year with Miguel Almiron on the counterattack, you're a different team. This year, you don't have that. This year, this team is not as dangerous on the counterattack. They can break through passes, and there was a sequence last night through the middle of the field with a series of passes through the middle that was absolutely beautiful. That's where Atlanta United's headed. It's not sit back and sit back and sit back and encounter with speed. I think that's a limited approach, and I don't think that's what the team wants to be in the long term. I just disagree that not having the ball is a good thing. I really, truly do. It's just the way that I see the game and the way that I see the talent on this team. Last year's team's a different story. This year's team, I don't think that's going to be the most successful approach.
Chandler Creel again, should we be concerned that Atlanta United has yet to win a match in which they conceded a goal?
Hardly any teams have. I mean, the conceding a goal part, that will work itself out, but conceding first, that's normal. I think we should stop looking for things to be concerned about. That's where I think things are right now. Look, Atlanta's not dominating the league at the moment, but really nobody outside of LAFC is. So you're building, and they do need to pull some wins where they concede. They do need to pull some wins where they concede first. But it is Overreaction Thursday, so it's all appropriate. Don't worry.
Although Chandler did refer to this as Overreaction Wednesday.
I don't know what day it is either, Chandler. I'm right there with you. Don't worry so much. You know, I really feel like last night shows you where this team can go, and there's been other performances over this last month that can show you where this team is going. So don't worry quite so much. It's okay. Okay. And we're off, according to @OpenCup. Northeast Pool. New York Red Bulls will host New England Revolution. NYCFC will host North Carolina FC, and I would assume that will not be at Yankee Stadium. So stay tuned on the Northeast Pool as to who is playing where. Red Bulls probably won't play at Red Bull Arena. They've generally played their Open Cup games at
Montclair?
MSU Soccer Park. Yeah, where the Red Bulls 2 play. Probably will play Revolution there. NYC, I don't know where they're going to play North Carolina, but I would be shocked if it's at Yankee Stadium. So North Carolina FC, that's the first time they'll get to play NYCFC. That'll be an interesting matchup.
Developing story out of North Carolina FC, Nazmi Al-Badawi has returned for the remainder of this season with another option for 2020.
He's on loan from Cincinnati. So,
yes,
again, keep that in mind. He didn't just leave or wasn't anywhere. He was with Cincinnati, and he actually played in their last match. But he is going back on loan to North Carolina FC, and he will be available in the Open Cup because he has not played in the Open Cup with Cincinnati just yet, so he's not cup-tied.
John Nason, last thing Atlanta United needs is a home draw with Charleston in the @Open Cup. This could be reaching #Seattle versus Portland levels, !
I mean, when you do it geographically, you're going to have some of these happen. So, there are only so many things U.S. Soccer can do. It's just when you don't have this actually being held in front of you with a draw, you start to think conspiracies. And U.S. Soccer shouldn't have the setup like that where people think that way. I think that's why a lot of people, Atlanta United fans, were rooting for Nashville to see a different type of opponent. But you have Memphis and you have Orlando in this pod. We'll see how it ends up being pulled out of. I don't know. I don't know if it's a ping pong ball being pulled out or an envelope being pulled out or what it's being pulled out of. I don't know because we can't see it. We're just waiting on @Open Cup to announce things.
Trains asks, do you see a Dion-Bello partnership in the future? Barco walks back into this side too, Gressel and Tito to the bench, or is this too attacking, ?
Barco walks back into the lineup when he's back. That's a definite. And who he walks in for will probably depend on where things are in June 26th. Remember, you won't have Joseph in that one. You might not have Romario. So you could see June 26th, Tito starting up top. You could see Barco, Pereira, and Gressel together. You could see Barco, Pereira, and Pitti together. You could see Barco, Gressel, and Pitti together. I think Barco is the definite in that group. When he is back with the team, he is in the lineup. And the rest, look, it's not going to be an 11. It's not an 11 anymore. You're not going to see the same 11 every time. It's going to be a group that you will start to see some matchups exploited. You will start to see some, I think, as players get tired, you'll see other players step in. It's going to be more of a group of 15, 16 as opposed to just 11 players you play, and that's your starting 11, and that's it. I don't think that's going to be the case going forward.
Will asks, or Will says, on his hashtag Overreaction Thursday, my gut is saying Frank de Boer is more Mourinho than Cruyff, and this 3-0 will be much rarer. The binary 1-0 scoreline will come more often than not. Seems against what the team was founded upon. Quote, win games 4-3, end quote, but it is points and results. So,
how many times did they win 4-3? How many times have they won 4-3?
Can't think of any.
Two times with a scoreline like that.
Okay.
San Jose, both times.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's about it. Yeah, that was what was said. That's also what was said about a way to play. I don't see the De Boer Mourinho stuff at all. I completely disagree with that because Mourinho's afraid of having the ball, and Frank de Boer wants the ball. That's a critical difference between the way those two approach the game. You can't be Jose Mourinho and have possession in the way that Frank de Boer wants it at the same time. It's really, really difficult to pull that one off. So I disagree that he's going to be a defensive manager in that regard. He's a defensive manager in the sense that Pep Guardiola is a defensive manager. The possession is designed to organize the team. And, yeah, you've got to be smart in your possession to keep your team organized to deal with counterattacks. And I think that's the idea here. I just disagree that they're a defensive team in principle. The way that they play is not putting a bunch of numbers behind the ball. It's not what Minnesota did last night. It's not what other teams have done against Atlanta United. That's not how Atlanta United approaches games. They want to control games through possession. They want to limit opportunities for the opposition. If they win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, whatever, it's winning. That's the important thing here. So I think we're looking for things to say that it's a defensive team now. I don't get that sense at all, and I don't think there's any handcuffs that Frank de Boer is putting on the attack. At Open Cup is back on it. The GoBots tweeted again. DC United will host Philadelphia. Columbus Crew will host Pittsburgh Riverhounds.
Okay, so the Mid-Atlantic.
They're still busy. We got more. Southeast Pool. Charleston will host Atlanta United. Memphis will host Orlando City. So it's not Atlanta and Charleston in Atlanta this time. It is in Charleston at MUSC Health Stadium. But it is Atlanta United and the Charleston Battery for the third straight year in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup.
Well, there you go. And so now it's going to be June 11th or 12th, waiting on
Charleston to announce time and date.
Yep. So it'll be at MUSC Health Stadium, and news yesterday out of Charleston is that the ground upon which MUSC Health Stadium and the Blackbaud office complex are on has been purchased by an Atlanta company, and so the Battery will be looking for a new home after this season is over.
Yeah, we had talked about that a few months ago, and that's been confirmed now. So this will be the last opportunity for Atlanta United to play at MUSC Health Stadium. Great venue, one of the first soccer-specific stadiums in the United States. If you are able to block out the time to go to Charleston for this match, highly, highly recommend it. It's a great place to see a game, and it will be a different vibe than what we've seen at Kennesaw with this match, which has been really good. It could be a packed house at MUSC with this one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that if you're going to get Charleston and Atlanta again, I'm glad it's in a different place this time around. At least it has a little bit different feel.
And to get us caught up on the Twitters, Ricky Ricardo says that tweet sounds like a GoBot to me, LOL, and I don't know which tweet he's referring to.
It's all GoBots.
Yes, it is all GoBots. So yeah,
GoBots.
We're officially caught up on Twitter, and we have 3 of the 8 pods determined with who's going where on at Open Cup.
We are waiting for more from at Open Cup. The GoBots do not tweet very quickly, so we will finish out the draw with you, and if we get anything else before we finish up, we'll give you a heads up. But again, Atlanta headed to Charleston on either June 11th or June 12th. Go ahead and pull up Charleston's USL schedule around that so we know. Probably going to be the 12th, unless there's something weird about the schedule that they would need to do it on the 11th. But I would assume that it will be on June 12th on a Wednesday night in Charleston. You'll be able to watch on ESPN Plus, and you will be able to listen on 92.9 The Game.
All right, so you have a home match June 8th at MUSC Health against Birmingham Legion on that Saturday. And then the following Saturday, the 15th, they have to be in Tampa to take on the Rowdies at 6:30 p.m.
So it could be on the Tuesday if they wanted to do it a day earlier and Atlanta agreed, but my guess is it'll be on the 12th, so stay tuned there. Central Pool, St. Louis will host Chicago. FC Cincinnati will host Louisville. That'll be a fun one.
Interesting. So
yeah,
the Bailey
be a
gets
really fun one.
Old USL competition. So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun one for the folks at Nippert to revisit Lou City and FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest rivalry Open Cup match that we have so far is Cincinnati hosting Louisville. St. Louis, Chicago could be a good one, too. I don't know how often those two teams have met, but St. Louis and Chicago generally don't like each other in anything.
And so now that leaves us the 2 Plains and the West and the Northwest. But to recap, Northeast Pool, Red Bulls hosting Revolution, NYCFC hosting North Carolina FC, Mid-Atlantic, DC United hosting the Philadelphia Union, and we're thinking that one's probably going to be out at the Soccerplex.
Probably.
Columbus Crew hosting Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Southeast Pool, once again, Memphis hosting Orlando City at AutoZone Park, and the Charleston Battery hosting Atlanta United. Central Pool, St. Louis hosting Chicago Fire, FC Cincinnati hosting Lou City. So that one, like I said, I'm looking forward to the Central Pool because St. Louis, they are tough to play. An experienced side, very defensive side, going up against Chicago. And then just from a rivalry sake, Cincinnati and Louisville. That one will be fun.
That one will definitely be fun. Memphis getting a chance to host their first Open Cup match is really good for them, too, with Orlando coming to town. Northern Plains Pool, Colorado Rapids hosting New Mexico United, Minnesota hosting Sporting Kansas City. Minnesota and Sporting have had a long Open Cup rivalry going back to the old NASL days for Minnesota. They always seem to play one another. That's a good one in terms of rivalry. I was hoping New Mexico would get to host the game here, but they got to get past Colorado first. It's a winnable game for New Mexico for sure.
Yeah, and Santi Moar is definitely one of the names to pay attention to if you haven't spent some time in the USL Championship this year. But New Mexico United, they've done some really amazing things out at Isotopes Park. And to what you said, I would have loved to have for there to have been a home match for New Mexico United to start things off.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Does not happen. So New Mexico has to go on the road, but that is a winnable match for them, as good as New Mexico has been this season. Colorado's been better as of late, but how seriously are they going to take the Open Cup this year? We'll have to wait and see how that goes down.
Andrew Baker, I think the U.S. Open Cup is great, but I hate, and I'm reading literally, the regional aspect of it. Hate. Every year it seems to be us playing one team in the first round instead of playing someone we've never played before.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part, but I don't hate the regional aspect of it because if you are a team who gets to this point, it's expensive, and you're trying to limit cost. So now, for me, what I would do is I would have MLS teams come in a round earlier to where there's more variety for the potential opponents, and then I think you're not going to have as many matchups that are the same. When you come in at this stage and there's only so many opponents left, you're going to see the same people over and over again. Come in earlier and then do the draw like you should, and potentially have Atlanta go play an amateur team, or potentially have Chicago go play Forward Madison. Like, do it around earlier. That's what needs to happen going forward. Then, and still keep the regional aspect, because you need that as much as possible. But if you do it around earlier, there's more opportunities for smaller teams to get those matchups with MLS opponents. And that's what drives a tournament like this. Houston will host Austin Bold. FC Dallas will host OKC Energy. So the smaller teams do not get to host Houston and or Dallas. Houston-Austin will be interesting.
Yes.
It is a very different Austin team than the one that will be coming into MLS. The Austin Bold and Austin FC folks do not really like one another, so you're not going to get any crossover there, but you do get an in-state rivalry. And Dallas hosting OKC. OKC is a team who could pull an upset there.
John Nason agrees with you. Pods of 8 next year, please, with MLS entering in the third round, the round of 64 for his overreaction Thursday.
Yeah, do the geographic pods of 8. I really like that idea. That's where it should be, and do it in round 3. More variety and more potential for, cup sets and more excitement. Yes, and that means MLS teams are going to have to play one more game in the Open Cup. Wah. I think it's time for that.
Is that a direct quote?
Yes, it's time for it. I mean, I get with the rosters, expand the rosters. I get with the salary caps, expand it a little bit. You're going to have to do that anyway to compete in CONCACAF, to compete with Mexican clubs, to compete in a growing market in this hemisphere. So add another game in the Open Cup. Come in the third round. First round is everybody. Second round is USL Championship and USL League One, and then third round is MLS coming in, and you go from there. Coming in the round of 64 is where you want it to be. And whatever you got to do to get down to 64, okay, cool. But the round of 64 is where MLS should come in, not the round of 32. You'll have more variety in the matchups there.
And so now we have 2 pods remaining, the West and the Northwest. And I'm looking forward to that last trip to MUSC Health Stadium. I know that there's the talk right now, and hopefully we'll be getting into it a little bit this week on Charleston Battery Weekly, is moving back to downtown and introducing it to back to the downtown area for the Charleston Battery next year. So we'll hopefully get into that over the next little bit and figure out what the plans are. The best laid plans anyway for the Charleston Battery when it comes to the 2020 season.
Look, their attendances have not been great in recent years out at MUSC Health, so I think they do need to get back into the downtown area. It'll help them in the long run. I just hate to see it at the expense of a really good venue and a really good place to see a game. So if you've ever wanted to go to Charleston and see a game at that venue, this is going to be your opportunity if you're in the Atlanta area. It's going to be a midweek game, so if you can do it, highly, highly recommended to make the trip.
And if you can't, reminder, it's on ESPN Plus through 2022, the Open Cup matches now. And
you can also listen on 92.9 The Game.
That too. Yes.
Yeah, just saying.
Yeah. And, for you and me, it holds, MUSC Health holds a special place considering what we were able to do coming out of the blocks with the Carolina Challenge Cup. So that was fun.
It holds a special place in American soccer, so hopefully it'll be a fun night in the Open Cup and have some Open Cup drama, and then hopefully Atlanta United will advance.
Mr. Green, at 919_Falcoholic, can't help but notice that more lower division teams are having to travel to MLS cities for Open Cup. Wouldn't it make more financial sense to let Goliath travel to David's house?
No, because it's supposed to be a competition, so it might make more financial sense, yes, but it's a competition. It needs to be a blind draw. I just wish we could actually see the blind draw. That's the problem I have. I do not subscribe to the theory of manufacturing MLS teams going on the road to smaller teams. That is not competitive integrity. This tournament needs to have that competitive integrity. It needs to be a draw. If you can host, then it is a blind draw, ping pong ball, envelope, whatever. Just show us that so we have transparency, but No, I don't like manufacturing it and making MLS teams travel. West Pool, RSL will host LAFC. LA Galaxy will host Orange County FC. I am assuming that Orange County FC did not have a venue that met the standards of the fourth round coming from the NPSL.
That'd be my guess.
So they will go to LA Galaxy. They might play that at the track stadium at the former StubHub Center. Sometimes
Dignity
they play
Health.
Open Cup games. Yeah, Dignity Health. Sometimes they play Open Cup games in the smaller venue there. But that'll be a fun one with Paul Caligiuri's Orange County FC, the final remaining Cinderella team, getting a chance to play the Galaxy and maybe Zlatan.
Swixter has posted a match timestamp between him and Nathan at FC Epigee. They have the better angle than the 45. Looks like it's close to the timestamp. The ball apparently not making its all the wayness across the goal line
about?
to count.
You're pulling out random things out of the air, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. The goal that wasn't for Minnesota United, the quad save by Brad Gazan.
Yes.
Combination of Nathan at FC Epigee and Swixter posting two separate angles other than the 45 that we all look at, and it looks like it's as close to the timestamp that they've matched it, but it still looks like the entire ball did not cross over the goal line.
Yeah, I didn't think it did, just from the angles we saw. So I think we can stop the Zapruder approach, and it's no goal. Minnesota might disagree, but it's no goal.
Yes. And so now we just are waiting on the Northwest pool, which is now up. San Jose hosting Sacramento Republic. Seattle hosting Portland.
Seattle hosting Portland. That'll be interesting. I wonder if they'll do that at Starfire in the smaller venue. They've done that before for some Open Cup games. Sacramento going to San Jose. That'll be one to keep an eye on, too. So you pull all of the round of 32 games. We'll run through them one more time before we finish up. One more question from AA Five Stripes. Should we start to get worried? This is last year with Barco and Five Stripes as he keeps his form in MLS in the U20 World Cup if he gets bought by a European club. No, you can't worry about it. I mean, Barco playing well is going to attract attention. I don't think you're in a situation where you have to make a move immediately. Could it be his last year? Yeah, it could. I think probably next year would be his last year with Atlanta, unless you get a blowaway offer in the winter transfer window. You're not going to do anything in the summer window. I would be absolutely shocked unless somebody comes in with stupid money. Don't think that's going to happen. So winter transfer window, probably not. Next summer, need to keep an eye on it. In a perfect world for me, he comes back, he lights it up with Atlanta, has a good conclusion to the season, starts to get a lot of attention, starts to get a lot of conversation going, and he goes with Argentina to Copa America 2020 and plays well there, and then you make a move next summer or far more likely next winter.
All right, here we go. Northeast Pool. Red Bulls hosting New England Revolution. NYCFC hosting North Carolina FC. Mid-Atlantic Pool. DC United hosting Philadelphia Union. Columbus Crew hosting Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Southeast. Memphis 901 hosting Orlando City. Charleston Battery hosting Atlanta United. Central. St. Louis FC hosting Chicago Fire. FC Cincinnati hosting Louisville City. Northern Plains, Colorado Rapids hosting New Mexico United. Minnesota United hosting Sporting Kansas City. Southern Plains, Houston Dynamo hosting Austin Bold. FC Dallas hosting OKC Energy. West Pool, Real Salt Lake hosting LAFC. LA Galaxy hosting Orange County FC. Northwest Pool, San Jose Earthquakes hosting Sacramento Republic. Seattle hosting Portland.
That's your fourth round. Winners in each pool will then battle in the round of 16. We're assuming that's not a definite and don't know how that will play out just yet because I guess U.S. Soccer wants to keep us guessing. I don't know. What they said at the beginning of their draw on Twitter was that this draw determines the home and away sides for the 16 matchups during this round. Nothing about specifically what the round of 16 is with the winners of this round. It will be the following week. Does it mean that the winners in each pool play? I think that's a logical assumption. But that has not been specifically stated. Because that's what we do with the Open Cup. USOC fever. USOC crazy. How about that?
Catch it.
Yeah, try not to if you can help it. But catch it to go to Charleston for this game because this should be a fun one in Charleston. Atlanta headed to Charleston for the first time in an official match. They've been there for the Carolina Challenge Cup. They have not been there in an official match. It's been Charleston coming to Kennesaw. Both times these teams have matched up. They've both been good games. The first one was really good. Atlanta won't have it easy because they won't have their full squad, and they will have to rotate some. Frank DeBoer said they're going to take the tournament very seriously. That doesn't mean it will be absolute first choice in Charleston. I think you're going to see at least a couple guys get an opportunity here to show what they can do with some first-team players. But Atlanta starts their Open Cup run on either June 11 or June 12. We don't have the date yet. We don't have the time yet. You'll be able to watch on ESPN Plus. You'll be able to listen on 92.9 The Game. Stay tuned for all the rest. Make sure you're following Soccer Down Here, OSG Nelson, Longshoe for all the latest as it comes out today. And we'll be back later with Soccer Over There to talk about Champions League, to talk about Europa League, to talk about the managerial carousel around Europe and everything else from soccer around the world. Nick Leafy will join us for that. Until then, we're going to take a break for a few hours, and we'll be back with you this evening. Mucho plati, y'all.
Mucho plati.